UFC has the most pay discrepancy. Like when you're talking about like top earnings to lower earnings, I think UFC probably has them.
I'm getting less now for the UFC than I did for me some of my Cage Warriors fights. I took a pay cut for this fight.
This is why I haven't done any interviews. This is why I just kept my mouth shut for a long time. A lot of fighters have been keeping their mouths shut for a long time.
Dana White exposed. After years of silence, UFC fighters are finally revealing what's really been happening inside Dana White's billion-dollar empire. Champions earning $14,000 for title fights. Winners walking into debt after their biggest victories. Fighters, once loyal to the brand, are now breaking ranks, calling out a system they claim was designed to keep them underpaid and overlooked. The cracks are showing. What was once whispered behind gym doors is now public outrage. Fighters are exposing the dark underbelly of the world's biggest MMA organization, a place where risking your life might not even cover your rent. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson's story will leave you speechless. A fighter's confrontation with Dana White behind closed doors changed everything. FBI investigations, betting scandals, and a $7.7 billion media deal that could redefine the future of combat sports all collide here. This isn't one fighter's complaint, it's a pattern, and what's being exposed could change the UFC forever. It began with silence, and then the silence broke. A fighter at the top of his game realized that while the UFC made millions off his name, his paycheck barely covered his bills. After a grueling training camp, endorsements that never materialized, and taxes that gutted what little he earned, he looked at his bank account and saw what he called pocket change. He confronted Dana White directly. In that cold, fluorescent-lit office, Dana didn't flinch. No apology, no explanation, just a shrug. The kind of icy dismissal that said, "You should be grateful just to be here." That moment became symbolic. Fighters realize that inside the octagon, they fight opponents, but outside, they're fighting a much bigger enemy, the system itself. This is the fight behind the fights. Let's start with a name that deserves your attention. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, 11 consecutive title defenses, one of the greatest to ever step into a cage, a pound-for-pound legend. But in 2011, when Johnson fought Dominic Cruz for the UFC bantamweight title, a championship bout broadcast to millions, his base pay was just $14,000. $14,000 for a world title fight. That's before taxes, before coaches' fees, before his manager took a cut after paying for training camps and travel. He walked away with barely enough to pay his bills. A UFC champion fighting for scraps. When this story resurfaced in 2025, the MMA community went nuclear. Fans called it criminal, fighters called it a disgrace. But most importantly, everyone knew it wasn't an isolated case. It was the system at work. Fast forward to August 2025. A new name, same nightmare. Charles Energy Johnson scored one of the most stunning knockouts of the year at UFC Shanghai. He earned his win bonus and even a $50,000 performance award. The crowd went wild. His highlight went viral. But when he got home, his bank account was negative. He was about to become a father and had no money to his name. Ariel Helwani's report of his situation exploded online. Fans were outraged. Fighters like Jeff Molina called it sad, but not surprising. And that's the point. It wasn't shocking. It was normal. This wasn't a mistake. It was the UFC pay structure doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep fighters chasing bonuses instead of stability. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. Median UFC fighter pay, around $51,000 a year. Nearly half the roster makes less than $45,000 annually. Meanwhile, the UFC's 2024 revenue hit $1.4 billion. The math is brutal. And here's the catch. Fighters aren't even employees. They're independent contractors. That means no health insurance, no retirement plan, no guaranteed contracts. You get injured, you're on your own. Dana White's response to all of this? You don't like the way we pay fighters? Too bad. Go start your own MMA organization. No apology, no empathy, just defiance. But what happens when the system pushes fighters so far and it starts breaking the integrity of the sport itself? November 2025, the UFC world erupted, not over a knockout, but a crime investigation. A fight between Isaac Dulgarin and Yadir Delval was flagged by IC360, a top-tier betting monitoring firm, for suspicious betting patterns. The FBI was called in. Dana White himself confirmed it. The shocking twist? Multiple fighters came forward, admitting they'd been offered up to $70,000 to throw fights. Let that sink in. Fighters who risk everything for $12,000 to show and $12,000 to win, offered more money to lose on purpose than they'd ever make fighting clean. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a symptom. When your athletes are underpaid and desperate, corruption becomes inevitable. Dana called fight fixing the ultimate betrayal, but critics shot back. If fighters were paid fairly, it wouldn't even be tempting. August 2025, the UFC announced a $7.7 billion media rights deal with Paramount and CBS, a 7-year, billion-dollar partnership that Dana White called incredible for the fighters. Finally, it seemed like things might change. But when pressed for details, Dana was vague. Bonuses might increase from $50,000 to $75,000, a minor gesture in a billion-dollar deal. Analysts called it low-hanging fruit, a token increase that barely dents the pay gap. Former champion Georges St-Pierre called it terrible for fighters, noting that the elimination of pay-per-view kills fighter leverage. Without PPV points, the top-tier athletes lose their biggest earning potential. Billions pouring in and fighters still scraping by. The fight for fair pay isn't new. It's just been losing for a decade. In 2016, stars like GSP, Cain Velasquez, and Tim Kennedy launched the Professional Fighters Association, seeking a fair 50% revenue split. It collapsed under UFC pressure. In 2017, Leslie Smith led Project Spearhead, collecting union cards, until her contract wasn't renewed. After she spoke out, the UFC's secret weapon? Fighters aren't employees. They're independent contractors. No labor protections. No union rights. Antitrust lawsuits led to settlements. $335 million in 2024. $375 million in 2025, but no structural reform. Some fighters still defend Dana. Kevin Holland called complainers bums. Others, like Smith and GSP, keep fighting for change. The division runs deep. The system thrives on it. Even Joe Rogan couldn't ignore it anymore. On his podcast, he admitted, "You should get paid an incredibly generous amount of money to step into a cage and fight for millions to watch." But then, he defended the UFC's business model, claiming Endeavor, the UFC's parent company, was hurting. Hurting? The same company signing multi-billion-dollar deals and flying private jets? The contradictions are staggering. Even those closest to Dana White can't hide the truth forever. And then, it got political. Dana White's long friendship with Donald Trump and his relationship with FBI Director Kash Patel raised eyebrows. Critics wondered, would these connections protect the UFC from deeper scrutiny? Analyst Luke Thomas questioned whether the FBI would truly hold the UFC accountable, given those ties. It's a web of power, politics, and influence. And while the suits protect each other, the fighters keep paying the price. The pieces all connect. Underpaid fighters, desperation, temptation, scandals, billion-dollar profits. One viral fan comment summed it up perfectly. Blame Dana. They're paid peanuts. All we can do is take advantage when we see what's up. The system breeds desperation, and desperation breeds chaos. When fighters can't afford to live, the integrity of the sport itself begins to crumble. From Mighty Mouse's $14,000 title fight to billion-dollar streaming deals, the UFC has built an empire off the blood, sweat, and silence of its fighters. They risk their bodies, their futures, even their lives, while the man outside the cage walks away with everything. The question isn't whether Dana White has built a successful business. He has. The question is, at what cost? As fighters continue to speak out, the world is finally listening, because this might not be another fight Dana White wins. It might be the one that finally exposes him. Let us know your thoughts in comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, Don't forget to like this video to support the channel. Subscribe to Boxing is Here for the latest updates, fight breakdowns, and expert analysis, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.